Now, if you're looking for a new language to learn in 2023, then buckle up because I have 5 very exciting suggestions for you here. And these are non-obvious suggestions too, because let's be honest, no one needs another video suggesting that you learn Spanish and French. Now, Indonesian is a cool language spoken by over 250 billion people.
Halo teman-teman, selamat siang. Nama saya Jin.
Bersama dengan suami saya Vitali, kita tinggal sekarang di Bali, Indonesia.
Ever wanted to just pack it all in and go and live in Bali for a year? Yeah, you, me, and a million others. Maybe work as a digital nomad, learn to surf, or just take a nice long break. Well, it turns out that Indonesian is a fantastic language for adventurous people who love Southeast Asia's island culture, especially if you want to have magical moments with the locals in any of these popular places. Indonesian is quite a refreshing challenge, to be honest, and speaking the language is not as hard as you think.
Dan aku kerja, aku pencuri.
Pencuri!
I've heard that most Indonesians don't speak English outside of the major cities. Meanwhile, Indonesian is one of the fastest growing languages in the world, which is why it is on this list right now. Indonesian, it's important in business, tourism, hospitality, politics, culture, and in fact, Southeast Asia is an emerging market full of opportunities. Also, Indonesian is generally speaking mutually intelligible with the Malay languages as well, spoken in these 7 countries. And if you live in Australia, or maybe even if you're in the Australian military, they're quite big on teaching Indonesian. More on that in this video right here.
Sepertinya saya akan pergi ke pantai atau pegunungan.
Saya akan pergi ke pantai dengan teman-teman saya. Kita akan berselancar.
Did you read along with the audio? So, Indonesian words are written the exact same way that they sound, and actually Indonesian grammar is also pretty easy, except for the parts that are not. But hang on, we're going to get there. For a start, you're going to be using the Latin alphabet, which is pretty convenient. How many languages in Asia do that?
Wah, bagus.
Sentence order goes subject, verb, object, just like in English. And in fact, you can often translate Indonesian sentences into English word for word.
We don't have plural, tenses, gender, mood, or conjugation. We use the right words to express those things instead.
I surf, I'm surfing, I surfed. These all sound exactly the same in Indonesian. So how do you talk about different time frames then? Well, you just attach a time signal. See how it works right here. Probably the trickiest thing to get used to in Indonesian is all the prefixes and suffixes, because Indonesian is agglutinative, I love that word, and quite creatively so. This means that a bunch of small words can be glued together to make one big word. And this is where it starts getting a bit complicated, because they also use a ton of particles to convey feelings. For example, this one that you'll hear every day, and apparently Indonesians say no a lot.
Learn the differences between when to say tidak, enggak, tak, bukan, jangan, and any other forms of no, including yeah.
There is more, of course, but overall I think learning Indonesian is a really nice way to branch out of the Indo-European language family tree and get an introduction to the Austronesian language family. Another really nice family tree is the StoryLearning family, and if you click these 3 buttons right here, you'll instantly become one of us.
До україномовних каналів. Робіть свою справу, теж де б ви не були. Давайте, переходьте, друзі, на українську мову. Підтримайте наш український фронт тут, на Ютубі теж.
If you love the sound of Slavic languages, well, you are not alone. Slavic sounds have always been strangely intriguing, but first-time language learners don't always realize that they have options besides Russian. So quite appropriately, I think, we're going to see how amazing Ukrainian is. Now, first of all, Ukraine is the 2nd biggest country in Europe, and more than 46 million people speak the language. It's also big in Asia and in North and South America. In fact, it is the 2nd biggest Slavic language of them all, so that's a pretty big deal. Listen to this, it kind of surprised me. A major reason that people learn to speak Ukrainian is because Ukraine is a popular place to study, especially especially medical and engineering courses. These courses are more affordable in Ukraine, so they get a lot of university students from mostly Asian and African countries like these ones. Another big win here is that people who speak these languages will often be able to understand you if you speak Ukrainian to them. So if Slavic languages appeal to you, then maybe Ukrainian can be your gateway drug.
Але там зігрівала атмосфера і дуже було приємно там знаходитись. Гори, краєвиди і дуже по-зимовому тепло з глінтвейном.
Okay, so there is no denying this. Ukrainian, well, it sounds lovely. It is well known for being a pretty language, even a sexy language if you ask some Ukrainians. Hardly surprising though when they have letters like this one that are unique to their own Cyrillic alphabet.
Ї, їжак, Каїр, Ізраїль, кофеїн.
Pretty sound, and you just gotta love those double dotted I's, haven't you? Actually, all three of these letters are unique to Ukrainian, and one of them was even banned once. There's a weird story about that in this video. Most of the letters are pronounced how they are spelled though, and Ukrainian's definitely a softer Slavic language than others with a very melodious quality that works well in song and poetry. Okay, I know you are still thinking, but this is a difficult language still, and well, to be honest, you are right. It is a Slavic language, so it is very different from English, but it's not all hard. The alphabet, well, it's super easy, and once you can pronounce each letter, you'll be able to read out loud in Ukrainian, and if the story's good, your understanding will catch up. Your default word order in a sentence is going to be just like English: subject, verb, object, and it's your basic topic comment language. So you say the topic, and then you say something about the topic, and that's kind of how you structure your thoughts. But Ukrainian also has a certain amount of free word order, which can be confusing at first, but the plus side of free word order is that you'll have many options to put sentences together, and you can play around quite a lot. Ukrainian doesn't have any articles and only 3 basic tenses, but it does have 3 genders, which means lots of fun and games remembering what word is what. Sorry about that. The real challenge though will be the various cases, verbs of motion, and tricky verb conjugations. So is it worth it? Well, I think so. I mean, right now, wouldn't it also be fantastically, brilliantly wonderful to be able to speak with Ukrainians in their own language, celebrate their culture with them? You know what I mean? I was looking at the latest stats, and you should see how many people are suddenly starting to learn Ukrainian. On Duolingo, apparently there is a 577% increase in Ukrainian learners. So quite a historic moment happening right now, something cool to be part of.
Herkese merhaba, benim ismim Çağla. İstanbul'da yaşıyorum, Türk'üm ve bu videomda size Türklerin nasıl Türkçe konuştuğundan bahsedeceğim.
All of the languages in this video just sound so cool, so how on earth are you going to choose? Well, Turkey, as we now have to call it, has 4,002 babies born every single day, so I reckon we will all be wanting to know Turkish quite soon. Turkish languages are actually getting more and more important with each year. See this map? Well, Turkey is literally a bridge between Europe and Asia, so you're going to bump into Turkish speakers all over Western Europe, the Caucasus and the Balkans, and if you're not familiar with this part of the world, it is really fascinating. I was recently in Istanbul, and everywhere you go, there's just this crazy electric blend of Eastern and Western culture.
Şimdi bu uykulu haliniz, yataktan yeni kalkmış haliniz, bunu içtikten sonra şöyle bir hal oluyor. Hala sıcak.
Seriously, learning Turkish would give you access to a whole new world, and in my opinion, that's one of the best reasons that you should learn it.
Gelir, gider, bir gibi kelimeleri söylerken sondaki R harfini biraz daha yumuşak bir şekilde söylüyoruz. Yani R ile ş.
There's that sound again. Shh. It's like a fantasy language. Well, Turkish has a unique alphabet with 29 letters. There's no Q, W, or X, but there are 7 extra letters that were modified to perfectly match Turkish sounds. You'll be happy to hear that the grammar is quite simple and the spelling is almost phonetic, just a few exceptions. There are no definite articles, no noun classes, no genders, and it's easy to build words because just like Indonesian, the first one in this list, Turkish is, there's that word again, agglutinative. Mind you, all the suffixes added to words can be pretty confusing at first. Word order can also be a little bit tricky because the verb comes at the end of the sentence, but as long as you spend time properly learning verb endings, you won't have too many problems. And if you do fancy learning Turkish, well, we recently released a complete Turkish program that is built with the StoryLearning method. So if you like the idea of learning beautiful Turkish through stories, you should definitely have a look at this. It's suitable for complete beginners, and there's a 7-day free trial available too. Link, as always, in the description. There is a rumour that Bangla or Bengali is the sweetest language in the world, at least to the Indian ear, which mine is not. But maybe to ours too, I don't know. Shall we see what we think? Maybe you don't know much about it, but Bengali is a very significant language. It's the main language of a huge Asian country, namely Bangladesh, and after Hindi, it is the biggest language in India too. So why does this matter? Well, India is the second most populated country in the world, and they say it's on track to overtake China by 2030. Anyway, this all means that a crazy number of people speak Bengali. Ever heard of this poet? Well, he was one of the greatest poets of the early 20th century, and he wrote in Bengali, which is fantastic, brilliant work. So why is Bengali sweet on the ear then? Well, firstly, there are a lot of o and oo vowel sounds, and if you like pouting, well, you can say a lot of Bengali with a pout.
Take for example the word Sanatan in Hindi. Now in the word, the first sa is used. And when you write the word in Bengali, you also use the word sa. But the pronunciation of the word happens to be Shonaton. Notice how the first line, Preme Pora Baron, actually uses the letters da and na, but they are never pronounced using their original sounds.
Yeah, so it is all soft and pretty with no sharp edges to be seen anywhere. It's a pretty rhythmic language too, which kind of adds to the charm, and as a musician I can definitely appreciate that. Speaking of charm, can you believe how cool this script is and what fascinating numbers? I mean, the number 4 is still a touch confusing, but still. Standard Bengali has 29 consonants and 7 vowels and another 7 nasalized vowels. It's also known for its wide variety of diphthongs. That's these vowel combinations like this right here. All happening in one syllable. Word order, well, it's subject, object, verb. But here's some good news, there is no gender to worry about. However, Bengali has particles, a case system, something called animacy, measure words. For example, this means 9 cows. The pink part here is a measure word for living things. So Bengali does have its interesting side, but I wouldn't expect anything less. And how boring would it be if languages were easy? I mean, honestly. Latin? Seriously, Latin? I bet you didn't see that one coming. Learning Latin, well, it might feel like you've joined some secret cult. You're guaranteed to be part of something cool that your friends are not doing, at least your ordinary friends.
Non è saccharum, sed est mel. Ut dulce fiat, ut dulce fiat, cibus.
Capisco il senso, ragazzi, ma non letteralmente.
And that is what happens when you go to an Italian restaurant, but you are actually an ancient Roman. Now, believe it or not, guys, there are growing groups of Latin-speaking friends in places like London, Italy, New York, just kind of having fun and hanging out in an ancient language. And why not? It's the ultimate time machine experience here. Speaking of time travel, anyone know how Latin and Harry Potter are connected?
Res ridicula est res quae risum movet. Ha ha ha ha.
Stay tuned. But Latin is not just for fun, it's actually pretty useful. Thing is, Latin is a highly organized and logical language that sharpens the mind and gives you an edge with problem-solving skills. It's like being a maths whiz, but with words. And people who speak Latin usually become very good at expressing themselves in English as well. So it ends up being very useful in situations like business negotiation, litigation, and so on. It's just good mind training. Probably the most useful workplace for Latin is the interpreting field. What I really love though is how Latin has a way of just connecting the dots between many different languages, meaning it gives you a kind of blueprint for building other languages later on, like these ones, especially since Latin and all the Romance languages have an endless ocean of shared vocabulary and grammar. Latin can really help you improve your overall linguistic awareness and abilities. Really, really fun for world travelers, I would say. apart from all that surfing in Indonesia, that is. And if you want to get an idea of what Latin will actually be like, well, you can. I recently joined forces with Luke, that's right, the guy in this video, to create a brand new Latin course for story learning. That's right, a complete program to learn Latin from scratch using the story learning method. And I'll be honest, I really did not know if anyone would be interested in this particular course at all because, well, Latin, right? But let's just say I've been proved wrong. Learn Latin with stories? Link in the description.
Ergo attestato apud antiguos autores. Scimus apud vos antiguos autores.
See, you can even have disagreements about Latin in Latin. Now, there are 3 genders, masculine, feminine, and neuter, and when you make sentences, there's not really a particularly strict word order. There are 6 verb tenses, and most of the time the verb of a Latin sentence comes at the end. Also, the verbs, nouns, adjectives, and pronouns all change their endings in the plural. So put all of this together, and what do we get? We get serious fun with conjugations. Here's an interesting one. Latin doesn't use articles, like at all. Yep, Winnie the Pooh exists in Latin, but notice anything? Well, ille doesn't mean the, it means that, because in Latin there's no way to say the, so nice creativity there. There's also a case system with 6 main cases. That's right, 6, but just like Italian, you can leave out the pronouns, so instead of saying I run, you can just say run, so that's something, a little bit of rope there to help you out. And if you ever wondered where ego comes from, well, there it is, blame Latin. Or maybe Sigmund Freud, I mean, he's the one that put ego into popular vocabulary. And as for Potter...
Ah, you do it then if you're so clever. Go on, go on. Wingardium Leviosa. Wingardium Leviosa.
Did you know that many of these Harry Potter spells are in Latin? Well, J.K. Rowling minored in classics at university, and Harry Potter, or is it Harrius Potter, is full of Latin words and ancient mythology, so I guess Latin paid off for her. And if you want to know the truth about where Latin came from and what on earth is going on with all these fluent Latin speakers roaming the streets in 21st century, well, everywhere really, then you should start with a thrill ride in this video right over here. Even I was surprised, and I made the video.